Hey guys, welcome back to Minecraft The Lost Journals. Today we're going to be reading Chapter 9, which is titled To a Wolf, It's All Just a Game. It starts on page 85 and goes to page 91. If you guys have enjoyed this book so far, make sure you hit that subscribe button for more Minecraft The Lost Journals. Without further ado, Chapter 9 A Dead End. Max had led them to a dead end. The cliffs ahead of them were sheer except for a small hilly area at the far end of the valley. They might be able to scramble to slightly higher ground. She wasn't sure how high chickens could jump. It was worth a try at least. Gouts of fire burst from another rack around them, forcing them to dodge or slow down as they rushed for the hill. As they neared it, despair started to replace the panic, clutching her chest. The hill wouldn't have saved them. Nothing but sheer bedrock and netherrack surrounded them. Still, they scrambled to get atop the hill and stood, panting, looking around for any escape option. The jockeys came around the corner, and they were even more than Allison had expected. Not every chicken had a kid-like zombie pigman atop its back. Others carried full-size zombie pigmen, their twisted, odd faces focused on Max and Allison. The chicken mounts all moved at about twice the speed of the pint-sized mobs. Max and Allison had seen them in the overworld, letting them easily gain on Max and Allison. 20 chickens and their riders rounded the corner, and then 20 more, and then more, until Allison lost count. There's nowhere to go, she whispered. We're going to the Allison started to say, but stopped when an arrow sailed into the group, advancing on them, and pierced both a zombie pigman and his chicken. The monsters fell to the ground, leaving nothing but an egg and a few feathers behind. Who's shooting at us? Are we now dealing with skeletons? What's happening? Max asked, looking for the source of the arrow. Allison too expected to see the jerky white bones firing arrows at them, but now another jockey went down, falling off its chicken and thrashing around on the ground before it popped out of existence. More went down, and a war cry sounded above their heads. A body fell in front of them and landed in a crouch. Max and Allison both jumped back, and a girl about their own age stood up and turned to them. She grinned and said, Here, take these. Then Allison's hands were full of bows and two quivers. The girl stepped to the side to give herself some room and then shot another jockey off its chicken. The girl wore leather armor and had a bow that glowed slightly in the low light. Her hair and skin were light brown. She was followed by a white wolf with a purple handkerchief around its neck. The wolf leaped into the ground of monsters, snatched a small zombie pigman from a chicken's back, and whipped its head back and forth, the creature in its jaws flailing inefficiently. The wolf tossed it aside and went for another one. The girl let fly arrow after arrow into the crowd, hitting their attackers with amazing accuracy, spearing others, kicking some zombie pigmen away, and then, when they got close, and then shooting them once there were enough space to draw her bow. The wolf tore through the mob, barking excitedly as if it had never had so much fun. Allison had just thought she was going to die, and the wolf was treating the situation as a game. Allie, shoot them, Max said, grabbing a bow and quiver from her. She can't get them all. Allison wasn't sure this girl couldn't take down the entire horde herself, but the mobs were converging on her, and she couldn't kill them fast enough to keep free of them. One reached out and grabbed the girl's arm, slashing at her, and she leaped aside, off balance for a moment. Allison slid down the hill, aimed, and took a deep breath. Now she was ready. The bow wasn't well made. She guessed it had been dropped by a monster. Still, better than nothing. It would shoot an arrow, and that's all she needed. She quickly drew and let fly an arrow at a chicken and its rider that pushed the girl to the ground and were threatening to overwhelm her. The zombie pigman fell, and Allison took another one down. The wolf came to the rescue them, bailing through and knocking jockeys and chickens aside to reach its mistress. The girl got to her feet with a grateful nod toward Allison and knocked another arrow. Allison took a quick survey of the scene. She didn't want to hit the girl or the wolf, so she went for some of the straggling beast, bringing up the rear. Her first shot went wide, but her second stuck home. Where was Max? She hadn't seen any of his arrows going into the monsters, but she didn't dare turn around and look to her friend. Another guttural cry, and Max appeared in the middle of the melee, swinging a golden sword. A golden sword? Where did he get that? He wasn't very good. He hadn't had a lot of practice, and Allison had refused all his requests to spar with the sword she created. But sometimes all you needed was a sharp weapon and an enemy in front of you, and then gravity and inertia did the rest. After that, the tide turned. Max and the wolf took care of the mobs from the middle of the fight, while Allison and the other girl attacked from the fringes. In a few short minutes, it was over. They were surrounded by dropped weapons, arrows, eggs, rotten flesh, and gold nuggets. Allison and Max panted and leaned on each other, but the girl looked positively triumphant. Did we win? Max asked, looking around at the loot, Allison and the strange girl who had saved them. I think so, Allison said, nodding. The other girl looked satisfied, watching her wolf run around, gobbling up rotten flesh. Hey, thanks for saving us. Where did you come from anyway? The girl pushed her long brown hair out of her face and inspected a bright red burn on her arm. Then she put her hands on her hips and looked at Allison. What are you doing running straight into an ambush? They herded you here. Didn't you realize that? She grinned at Allison, taking some of the sting from her words. We got lost, Allison said, and then we were running for our lives. We didn't really think. The girl looked over them, appraising. That's how you die real fast around here. Another way to die here is to visit looking like that. She pointed at their clothes. Where's your portal? We'll get you back safely. You won't survive half a day here without weapons and armor. It's that way, Allison said, pointing to the left. No, it isn't. It's definitely that way, Max said, pointing to the right. It was right near the spire of glowstone, Allison said. Back that way. Which spire of glowstone? Those things are all over, the girl said. We ran a long way. I'm not sure where we started. We'll have to go look for it. It's not like it's going anywhere. A creeper blew up and put out the portal as we came through. We weren't prepared to relight it. We weren't prepared for anything, Allison said. Max struck his hand out. I'm Max. She's Allison. Freya, the girl said, shaking it. She took Allison's hand, too. And that's a mess. Come on, I live just up here. She pointed to the top of the cliff. Max had too many questions to know which of one to ask first. How had 3 kids and a wolf demolished a huge mob of chicken jockeys? Who was the amazing girl who had rescued them? How did she get that burn on her arm? Who had built the secret tunnel in the canyon wall that led up to the fortress? And how did she have a fortress? But honestly, the biggest thing on his mind was the glorious sword at his belt. One of the zombie pigmen had dropped it after Freya had shot it with an arrow. It fell, twitching, and before it disappeared from the world, it dropped the sword with a clang. His basic understanding of enchantment told him there was something special about the sword that went beyond the golden beauty of its crafting. He'd have to give it to Allison for her to check out and make sure it wasn't damaged or about to break or anything. But he wanted to answer the biggest question. What was it enchanted with? His hand kept going to the hilt, resting against his hip, and then he would let it go. It wasn't time to think about this. He had to figure out what was going on, and more importantly, how to get home. Once they found what they were looking for, of course, Allison had the job of ask the girl all the questions. Well, in control. Freya led them up up the tunnel, casually packing away the loose loot she had gathered. Allison followed her closely, gathering information even as she looked with amazement at the tunnel around them, glistening with redstone and the occasional glowstone. So, you live here? She asked. How is that possible? I thought all the buildings here were infested with. She waved her hand vaguely behind them. Those mobs? Oh, blazes infested the place when I moved in. They still do, Freya said. Skeletons, too. Sometimes that's why I built the tunnel. There's usually nothing in the canyon. The mobs are stupid and don't think that a building can have a back door. I cleared out most of the mobs when I took the place over, but there are always more outside. I had to go out the front door to get to you, though. Since the tunnel takes more time, she indicated her burned arm. That's how I got this. She turned and winked at Allison, but the best part is the mobs outside also guard it from anything or anyone else trying to get inside. They don't realize that they've actually served as many guardians, although the kind of guardian that will kill you too, if they get a chance. So they're not perfect. She turned and continued walking. The tunnel was now spiraling upward at a sharper angle. So, there aren't any of those things inside? Allison asked. Who knows? Freya shrugged, as if Allison was asking about vermin, not deadly creatures. It's a big fortress after all. They could spawn anywhere. I keep the rooms lit. My wolf patrols as best as she can. I mainly live in just a few rooms and keep the rest closed off unless I need something. There's mad loot in these fortresses, and I haven't explored all of this one. Why not? Max asked, forgetting about his sword once he had the hint that there might be more elsewhere. I have everything I need, Freya said. I've got mushrooms for food, mob hunting for entertainment, and this mutt for companionship. She looked back at them and smiled, but her eyes looked sunken and dark, as if she hadn't slept well in months. Allison frowned at Freya. Max recognized that look. She gave it to him all the time. It was the I know you're telling me everything look. Where's your family? Allison asked when she reached the door. Freya didn't turn around, but she stopped briefly. We'll have to see if I have enough potions to fix our wounds, she said, as if Allison hadn't spoken. And we can take inventory and get something to eat. That mob dropped a lot of choice loot. Freya swung open the door, and Allison's stomach gurgled when she saw it was a well-stocked storeroom. Come on in. That wraps up chapter 9. I hope that you guys enjoyed, and if you did, hit that like button, and I will see you next time.